Shana Tova. So let's start by quite literally painting a picture. Over the summer, I was fortunate enough to spend a week up at Camp George, Canada's only Reformed Jewish camp. One afternoon we were there, we decided to join one of the cabins for their session at the pottery shed. When in the middle of our fun, fashioning pinch pots and helping the campers with their various projects, suddenly, and what felt like all at once, it started to absolutely bucket rain. I don't just mean a drizzle, I'm talking here about a full-on storm. The heavens were dark as the night, there was thunder booming and cracking from every direction, lightning sparked across the sky, and torrential, seemingly flood-like waters were pouring down. Sitting in this wood and tin shack, we knew that there was no going anywhere. Not knowing how long we'd be stuck though, the kids were rushed back to their cabins with their counselors, but the other staff and myself stayed behind to help clean up and secure the shed. As we were chatting and passing the time, like one of the jolts of lightning keeping us in our place and illuminating the clouds, I looked over one of their shoulders and it hit. Oh my gosh, I've got it. I've just written my Rosh Hashanah sermon. In the distraction of pottery making and the chaos of the storm, I hadn't yet noticed it. But behind us, decorating one of the walls of the shed, was a mural of a brightly colored, surrealistic landscape, comprised of the mountains and the earth and the sea and the sky, melding together in a depiction of that original act of creativity, the act of creation. The words surrounding it come almost immediately following where our alternative Torah reading for tomorrow morning picks up from Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. Vayitzer Adonai Elohim et ha'adam, afar min ha'adama, vayipach be'apav nishmat chayim vayehi ha'adam lenefesh chaya. God fashioned the human being out of the dust of the earth and blew into human nostrils the breath of life, and the human being became a living thing. I want to focus for a moment on this verb yatzar, which you may have caught, which can be translated as to fashion or form or to create. Sitting in that pottery shed, it struck me intensely that from the very first moments of our time on this planet, this potent energy, this limitless possibility, the one that comes along with being created and creative entities, is part of our very nature. There are many places in our textual tradition where we can find yatzar in its various contexts. For our purposes this evening, I'll highlight just two, which come from the machzorim and the sidurim in front of you, and both from our morning liturgy. The first is a prayer recited almost immediately at the start, the Asher Yatzar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yatzar et ha'adam bechokhmah, uvaravo nekavim nekavim chalulim chalulim. Galui v'yadua lifnei chisech vodecha, she'im yipateach echad mehem or yisatem echad mehem. אי אפשר להתקיים ולעמוד לפניך. ברוך אתה אדוני, רופא כל בשר ומפליא לעשות. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has made the human form with wisdom. You have created within it an intricate system of valves and vital organs. It is revealed and known before your throne of glory that if even one were to fail, it would be impossible to sustain oneself and stand before you. Praised are you, Adonai, healer of all flesh and maker of wonders. Delving a bit deeper, we can glean, and perhaps it sounds obvious, that something cannot be created out of nothing. For humanity to be created, we needed to be formed out of various parts, of stretched skin and bean-like kidneys and peering eyes and beating hearts. For otherwise, we would not be able to survive or thrive. Creation has its physical aspect, for it appears that to be God's partners, we must manifest on the earthly plane to fulfill the will of the heavenly realm. And perhaps we, as mere mortals, need something real, something grounded in the here and now, to at least attempt to understand the creative in the created. The second blessing is placed directly after the Baruch Hu, praising God's role in the creation of the light of day, known as the Yotzer Or. An excerpt goes as follows. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer Or uvarei choshech, Oseh shalom uvarei et hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer hameorot. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who fashions light and creates darkness, who makes peace and creates all things. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of the luminaries. From the Yotzer Or, we can learn that creation contains an element of awe. There is and will always be something that our human minds and our human hearts can never fully grasp, no matter how hard we try or how much we might wish to comprehend it. We can see, but we cannot quite touch light or dark. We can feel, but there is no embodiment of what peace looks like. We just know that we can praise and appreciate their presence, and that they are part of what makes our universe feel whole and holy and rich and full of wonder, all at the same time. In not truly knowing how or to what we are going to wake up to each morning, we breathe a sigh of relief at creation's renewal and step back into the mystery once more. If we are speaking of mysteries, then we can note that the Kabbalah, the mystical side of our tradition, shares its own version of the creation story. According to the Kabbalah, the universe was formed not out of shards of pottery, but out of shards of light. At the beginning of time, God's presence filled the universe. When God decided to bring this world into being, to make room for creation, God first drew in a mighty breath, contracting God's self. From that contraction, darkness was created. And when God said, "Let there be light," vayehi or, the light that came into being filled the darkness, and 10 holy vessels came forth, each filled with primordial light. God sent forth these 10 vessels like a fleet of ships, each carrying its cargo of precious light. Had they all arrived intact, the world would have been perfect. But the vessels were too fragile to contain such powerful divine light. They broke open, split asunder, and all the holy sparks were scattered like sand, like seeds, like stars, landing everywhere. That's why we humans were created, to gather the sparks no matter where they are hidden. And when enough holy sparks have been gathered, the broken vessels will be restored, and Tikkun Olam, the repair of the world, will finally be complete. Through this retelling of how the universe came to be, we can perhaps understand creativity as the divine sparks of heaven, which, much like a storm, gather into an electrical pulse. In a flash of inspiration, they are subsequently transformed into something brighter and better, by combining forces with other flashes, like pieces of a shattered vase being reassembled. And if we get lucky, if we do it right, or perhaps a combination of both, we can even use creativity to effect positive change for ourselves and our surroundings. And we can turn our fragility into a source of strength and work towards repair, improvement, and a renewed sense of purpose. Our Midrash Breshit Rabbah, our premier collection of Midrashim on the book of Genesis, will continue thematically with this image of light, teaching us as follows. God said to Abraham, Lech lecha, go forth from your land. Rabbi Yitzchak opened his remarks with this verse from Psalms. Listen, daughter, look and incline your ear and forget your people and your father's house. Rabbi Yitzchak said this may be compared to a man who was traveling from place to place when he saw a castle alight, bira achat doleket. He said, is it possible that this castle lacks a person to look after it? The owner of the building looked at him and said, I am the master of the castle. What happened to Abraham was similar. He said, is it possible that this universe lacks a person to look after it? The Holy Blessed One looked at him and said, I am the master of the universe. Concerning Abraham, one of our primary protagonists for the rest of Rosh Hashanah, we understand that there is a castle or indeed a whole universe that needs tending to. Yet there are two different ways to approach this predicament, evidenced by these two different ways of interpreting that verb, doleket. Doleket could firstly mean in flames. Our instinct might then be to understand the castle as being a flame, going up in smoke and in danger of burning to the ground with no one to rescue it. It might be scary and intimidating, and our gut might tell us to turn and run away or to call the fire department to come and put out the flames. The second approach is to see the castle as full of light, aglow and warm and inviting, full of miraculous potential and possibility, an adventure yet to be discovered. Even with trepidation, we can approach the castle and marvel at its beauty and bask in its heat and surrender to its flickering dance. In other words, we acknowledge that creativity can be difficult because it can be scary, because uncertainty and the unknown can be hard to face, because new adventures may or may not be successful, because no one wants to fall flat on their face. Nevertheless, taking these risks can also yield the greatest reward, because we never know if we're going to produce something more wonderful than existed before. It is, at the end of the day, understandable that we may see the world as doleket in all senses of the word in navigating the leap of faith that creativity requires. Illuminating his ideas of how to take this brave leap, Rabbi David Wolpe describes his own complex journey of faith in the lead-up to his decision to attend rabbinical school in his book, Why Faith Matters. He states that his initial hesitation was his concern that he would have to surrender all of his questions, all of his doubts, and any of his darker instincts or thoughts for him to believe strongly enough in God and our tradition to navigate the lifetime and explore the lifetime of his career. What he came to learn over the years, though, was that a religious tradition at its greatest, including at its peak of creativity, did not aim to solve the questions, but sought to, quote, live in the questions and return to them again and again, not as a circle returns, but as an ascending spiral which comes back to the same place each time at a higher level. Those same questions, that same quest that began for Wolpe in his teens has, to this day, never ended. Although he has been a rabbi for many years, he claims that the same questions which drove him then still drive him now. As with our creation story, he takes a few moments to marvel at the simple fact that we were created and that we exist at all. In approaching our existence as full of light rather than in flames, we can see everything around us, the good, the bad, the ugly, the cruel, the kind, as being encased in a sheen of the miraculous. We are able to see ourselves as possessing purpose precisely through questioning, as well as loving and lamenting and comforting and, yes, even suffering. And we are better able to live our lives in appropriate response. With that in mind, what is it that underpins our creativity with Jewish value and Jewish intention and that sense of confidence needed to live our lives in that spirit? My proposal is that it is the covenant we make with each other and our God, beginning with creation and continuing to this very day, that enables us to feel sure-footed. On Yom Kippur morning, we will open our Torah reading with the words, Atem nitzavim hayom kulhem, lifnei Adonai Elohechem. You stand here on this day, each of you, before your God. Our tradition is teaching us that we find ourselves at our most creative when we are in it together. Like the rest of Jewish life, whether it's study or mitzvot or relationships, creativity is not a solo endeavor. This brings with it a certain level of responsibility because it means that we are to be held accountable for the tremendous work of creativity. This might look like collaborating with others in our community, listening to and contributing ideas, acting as each other's biggest foils and biggest fans, and as a result, experiencing the enormous joy and privilege of making each other and our community stronger at the same time, through coming up with creative solutions to the creative problems that we are all facing. In other words, the covenant made with God on that day on the mountaintop was not just with the divine, and it was not just with the one on high and our ancestors. It is between ourselves and as a people, and between us and our God in our own day and age as well. Now, whilst we're focused on the excitement and potential of Rosh Hashanah, we must remember also that tonight is Shabbat. So let's return to this root verb, yatzar, with an example from Kabbalat Shabbat. Coming from Psalm 95, it reads like a liturgical rendition of the painting which inspired our reflections this evening, the one that illuminated the pottery shed up at Camp George on that stormy afternoon. Asher biyado mechkarei aretz, v'toafot harim lo, Asher lo hayam vehu asahu, v'yabeshet yadav yatzaru. In God's hands are the depths of the earth and the heights of the mountains. The sea is God's and the divine made it, and God's hands formed the dry land. Shabbat is also referred to as the Brit Olam, the eternal covenant between God and the Jewish people. We can therefore learn that creativity at its finest is what results from a mutual covenant of partnership, in this case between our people and our God. It is what allows us to scale new heights, to meet insurmountable challenges, and to function with a sense of awe and wonder at everything that this world in all its chaos has to offer. It helps us to know that we are not alone and to feel that we have someone, something, looking out for our best interests and desiring for us to succeed. Every once in a while, then, it might be worth leaning into this force which is bigger than us, one which we as Jews hold to be sacred. Which brings us back to the clay, the earth from which we as humans were formed. Among our High Holy Day liturgy, keep your eyes and ears open, we hear the powerful line, Ki hine kachomer beyad hayotzer, labrit habet ve'al tefen layetzer. As clay in the hands of the potter, preserve your covenant and not our imperfection. Sitting in the pottery shed during that storm up at camp, no single liturgical line could have summed it up more poignantly. It comes to teach us at this moment of deep introspection, reflection, and vulnerability regarding who we are and what we value as individuals, as a community, that at the nexus of covenant and creation lies creativity. Amidst that process of creativity, if we are fortunate, we will find just a little bit of God's spark reflected back at us. Across this next sacred stretch of time, therefore, this is my prayer for us. May it be a year of both flame and spark. May it be a year of transcendence and nearness. May it be a year of risk and reward. May it be a year of formation and transformation. May it be a year of questions and inspiration. May it be a year of life and limitless possibility. May it be, put simply, a year of creativity. Shana Tova.